Okay, so we are gonna film this video here. My little one wanted to join me.
And then we are going to start it over so we can do it.
Okay, so this video here, I'm gonna attempt not to be too emotional just because of the context. However, this I don't know, the subject matter has just been something that has been near and dear to my heart. And since becoming a mom, I am now realizing the gravity of the importance of it. And so I wanted to film this video as somewhat of just like a low-key, just kind of casual conversation, just to be able to share my thought processes behind it and, you know, the concept and how I truly believe that this subject matter is not really being taken seriously enough, and that we have a nation or we have generation after generation after generation
About the generation about our brains.
Again, with my little one here, she'll be 5 in January.
And January 9th for my birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And for that one,
and I think about her future. As I think about what I currently have been going through myself, as well as in the past. And so this entire concept came about. I'm an empath, so I'm extremely sensitive. And it came about essentially when I was thinking about and running or just performing an audit within my own interpersonal relationships, especially those with other women in my life that I deeply cared for. And for whatever reason, not to place blame, things just ended up not, I guess, like the friendships ended, the relationships ended. I don't really know a better way to say it. Just things, you know, you lose friends in life. Unfortunately, it's part of life. However, I feel with women, it's particularly more of a sensitive and more impactful event to navigate through and figure out, because we hold our relationships so near and dear to our hearts, because we're nurturers and we're natural, you know, naturally loving and caring. And so it's very difficult when you have you know, a bond that's broken between a fellow sister. Hello, mama. And so that's really how it came about, and why I am so passionate about this, because I see so many other women suffering from it, not only, you know, just within my generation, but younger generations as well. And so this is really the gist of the video here. So I've been doing research. I put together this little slideshow here, but this has been me day and night, researching and compiling information well into the night. And these are just some of the thoughts that I wanted to convey in video of what I've kind of just been able to uncover. So there's a sense of, you know, longing and loneliness that a lot of women are experiencing. A lot of women just really feel shunned, or they feel as if, you know, it's really easy for other women to turn on them and to feel like an outcast. I know myself personally, I've been through quite a lot where, you know, you go deep within in terms of self-reflection, you know, once you reach a state of maturity to understand that obviously, you know, not to be caught up in like the blame game per se, but to understand that there are, again, I'm taking my time here and pacing myself. I'm going to probably have to edit this, which is fine, but I want to just talk through this, and this is the reason why I put these slide pieces or these slides together to help keep me on one track, because I will be all over the place. So essentially, you know, it's the connection that we women are seeking, and that there is a void in our society, especially a lot of women, how I stated before, feel really disconnected from themselves first and foremost, and there's origins to that, as well as being or just feeling disconnected from other women and having a genuine sisterhood. We're in a day and age where, it's attention for sale. And a lot of women kind of feel like if they're not, quote unquote, the hot thing or like the latest, IG little cutie or whatever running around, you kind of feel like your self worth isn't, doesn't really have any worth to it in a sense. And then, of course, that's just a outward reflection of the inner turmoil that women are going through that ends up manifesting in jealousy and catty behavior and no no mama, and just feeling, uneasy, insecure, jealous. I know I felt that way personally, around not even just women that I knew, but women that I didn't know, feeling as if like perhaps like I didn't measure up. And so that girl across the way, she looks prettier than me, or she's thinner, or her hair is better, or she has better nails, or her skin's clear, her teeth are whiter, whatever it is. Feeling as if like I don't quite measure up, and it was causing me to feel ugly, and not just ugly on the outside but ugly on the inside as well, because it was making me conjuring up thoughts of like, oh gosh, I wish she would just leave, or gosh, why does she have to be here, or why does everyone like her anyway, or what is so special about her. I started to notice I was thinking these thoughts, and I realized now, like, those aren't my thoughts. Like, where did that even come from? What type of programming have I been like susceptible to that I've allowed in my life to where I'm thinking this about another fellow goddess? Like, why am I even thinking that? And I know a lot of it is rooted in different um, origins, of course, and that's one of the things that we will be uncovering during the film, and that we already have been to discover, or uncover and discover, I should say, through the interviews that we've been able to film to date, and then also just from the independent research that I've been conducting. But that's kind of how this all came about, where it was just like, why am I feeling these terrible thoughts that I don't feel good? Like, I feel gross. I feel disgusting. Like, I feel really bad about myself. And then I'm spewing this out on this other woman, and there's no reason for that. Um, I know, like, as young girls, again, with my daughter being 4, I don't want her to grow up thinking that she has to be in competition with other girls. Like, and I know that was so heavily pressed and so heavily, it was kind of like an underlying, feeling. Like, no one really directly said it, but there was always the sense of like you had to be a little bit better than her, in terms of like how you're going to differentiate yourself. And I think about going on things like the like yearbooks and just ways that children are positioned to be, or to receive, attention. And so it's like best hair or best body or best skin, and so things like that automatically kind of like bake in that feeling of inadequacy, I feel. And I'm not going to say it's wrong to receive recognition. I think it's just like we have to take a step back and I have to understand, like, well, what are we truly wanting to instill recognition, and what for, and and for what cause, and is this really truly beneficial, or is this really kind of like laying the groundwork for low self-esteem, or constant battling within yourself, as well as, like I said before, the outward manifestation of now you're spilling all that ickiness that you feel about yourself onto other people, and how it's deeply devastating interpersonal relationships as it pertains to women. I've been working on this project now for 5 years, and so I'm heavily invested and deeply committed to it. It's something that I take very serious. I haven't given up on it. I had to take a step back due to some personal things, which I guess you could call it, timely or uncanny, due to fallouts with personal women in my life, women that were a part of it and that were helping with the production, in some way, shape, or form, lending their gifts and talents and support in different ways, in terms of our agreement. Nothing like, like a big, huge legal fallout or anything, but just more so like not, I don't know, just kind of like the fallout of like a sisterhood. So it was kind of like, gosh, like I'm creating this project that I'm so passionate about, that I have so much belief in, that came to me in a dream based off of my personal inner turmoil and my own personal, like I said, audit of my own personal relationships with other women in my life. And then here I am having all these battles and all these microaggressions and cattiness and the jealousy amongst my friends and family, as I am attempting to finish this project. And, was one of the things that caused me to have to take a break. That plus giving birth, I was pregnant when I first started the project, and she is again about to be 5. And so here we are today, about to be January of 2020. We're in December of 2019 now, and I'm still here. So obviously it's bigger than me. It means something, because I would have just thrown the towel in a long time ago, because it probably would have been easier to do it. But something in me called me back, and I know it's because it's bigger than me. It's about other women. It's about other sisters and other family members and other moms and other aunts and nieces and cousins and best friends and other daughters out there as well, in the next generation that's going to be coming up, that we are raising, and the women and young girls that I will never meet when I'm gone. And this is going to be added into the universal, I guess, mind or heart, if you will, to be able to be viewed and experienced for generations to come. And so I know it's something that I'm just drawn to do, and for the longest time I questioned myself and even God as to, like, why me? Like, why couldn't you choose someone else who has more connections or better, I don't know, better whatever, like, give it to them, because I don't know if I could do this. And maybe you chose the wrong person. And I received a sign clear as day that, no, like, Aya, this is meant for you, and this is your job to finish this in your way. And so I told myself I wouldn't get emotional, but that's again the continuation of the importance of this. It's bigger than me. It's beyond me. I am just one of the people that is called to bring it into fruition. And so that is the point of this video. Just to further the point too, I was just collecting images of kind of like the connectivity and where it starts in the origins, and that's essentially what we will be uncovering further in the film. Why is this kind of unspoken hurt, wound, I guess, open wound, unhealed yet to be healed wound, wound, still very prevalent in many young women's lives? And where does it start? And what's exacerbating it? I know we have things that we believe and things that we've obviously been able to uncover with research, but we want to get to the pinpoint of having like more conversation and more awareness built in around this, because it's really important that we locate the questions to these answers. Again, I know a big, huge aspect of it is mom and baby, especially mother-daughter relationships. There's a lot of hurt in that space. I've had the pleasure and benefit and blessing to work with a healer in the healing arts, and she speaks directly to women. And a lot of women have mommy wounds, as she coined it. And so a lot of women have a lot of hurt relationships with their mothers. And I know that also has my own personal experience. I too, unfortunately, fit into that category. And so it's been difficult for me to trust other women too. I know moving forward, because the one woman in my life that I feel I should have been able to trust, I haven't. And my birth mother, I was adopted, and so my birth mother, her and I still don't really have that great relationship today. I'm getting to know her now as an adult, but I didn't really realize how much that had affected me until I had my own daughter, to realize, like, wow, like, this is really important, like, to have family and to have that support system, to have that healthy, positive, supportive relationships with your parents, especially your mom as a girl. And not having that, I did not realize how much that affected me, and how many other women are also deeply affected by this as well. So the biggest thing is the youth, young girls, the next generation that we are raising, and that are being raised by the media, and that are being, exposed and subject to a lot of things in the world that are going on today, that are causing a lot of confusion and strife and just unrest, and just, I mean, there's been public outcry about various facets of things going on in the media and the news. However, Kaka, sit down, Mama. However, one of the biggest things we want to be addressing is like who is sowing the seeds into our young girls' minds. And I know it's easy to place blame on the media. There was a very wonderful film, actually, Misrepresentation, I absolutely adored and loved, and it spoke directly to that. However, with Does Pretty Hurt, we aim to explore what are women themselves inflicting upon themselves, and how are we and what are we instilling into our youth, into our young girls and daughters, and the young women who look up to us, as well as women who are our peers, and as well as our elders. Like, what are we being continually sowed into? Because just because you're 30, like I am, doesn't mean you stop receiving. Doesn't mean you stop being sowed into. It doesn't mean that you still have elders that you look up to, and you have matriarchs and mother figures that you look up to for guidance and wisdom. And so it's reciprocal, and it's a cycle of life. And it's the biggest question I've been kind of pondering, like who is sowing seeds into the minds of our girls as it relates to our own personal responsibility, and not just placing the blame on the media. Who and with what are young girls watering their internal garden? Those are two of the major questions that we will be continuing to explore and answer, because that is really where it's at. So if you have a daughter or a niece, or a young woman in your life that you deeply care and love, which we all do, thinking about what are their lives going to be like if we don't have not just positive role models, just like I'm an outside, it's great to look up to someone like the likes of Beyonce, but it's another to have someone in your actual home or your neighborhood that you can look up to and actually reach out to and have a conversation with in your time of need. Beyonce's not anyone's she's not responsible to obviously the world. She's responsible to obviously herself first, and to her daughters, and to her family and loved ones, and she can only do so much. So it's not fair to put so much burden on celebrities and public figures, politicians, etc. We really have to, I feel, do the groundwork and water our own gardens. And so when the young women that are reaching out within our community have no one to reach out to, besides going to a social media channel to look at their favorite social figure, who really isn't available for them because it can't be. It's just impossible. And no fault of their own. It's just the nature of the business. They're entertainers, so they're not open and available for, a crisis phone call in the middle of the night. So where are those women to turn to? Those young women, like, how are we going to be able to instill and instill and foster loving, nurturing relationships amongst women, without having these type of conversations had and being addressed as to like how are we as women going to heal first and foremost, so we can be the example that is laid for the next generations and for the future generations to come. Another important part is, where are our little girls, our daughters, our nieces, our cousins, our sisters, etc.? Where are they headed in life? Are we looking to forms of what's, the new term of toxic femininity, in a sense, or hypersexuality? Like, are we looking that as like the new norm of like what women and young girls should be aspiring to be? You want to be a sex symbol, and should just be wanted and desired by men in a lustful manner, and that's how you choose to navigate through life, and looking at other women as direct competition as who can be sexier and who can one up each other, and what map are they using to navigate that journey? So who's providing the roadmap? Is it going to be up to media, like I said before, or is it going to be up to us, the women on the groundwork, the women, the everyday women, I don't want to say everyday like we don't matter, but I mean the everyday women who are getting up every day and doing the work and feeding our children and caring for our families and loving our communities and planting our gardens, and doing the best that we can at just the amount of exposure and the overexposure that our children are subject to. So there's my little one here, of course, she's rambling on. But these are questions that really keep me up at night. It's like, what's going to be the end goal? Like, what are we doing here? It's one thing to, have fun. I'm not trying to be the fun police. I'm not saying people can't have a good time and people can't live their life and flourish and, have freedom of expression. We live in America, freedom of speech. I'm all for it. However, what is the level of responsibility in terms of the diatribe of like the women that are really wanting to move the needle forward in terms of having healthy, and I mean holistically healthy women in the world, raising the next generation of women an exemplary example of womanhood that is the model, and not shaming women for wanting to embrace their sexuality. Because I know there's a place for that. However, it shouldn't be something I feel that women should be aspiring to become just a sex symbol, and other women are viewed as less than, or how I said before, like you're looking at other women as to one up them on how good your sex is, or how sexy you are, or how many men you have, or how much money you have, or how many designer bags you have, and that makes you better and you're the badder bitch type mentality, how it's said. What else, do we value in womanhood, and how are we instilling that in our young girls? And in ourselves, firstly, because I know a lot of women my age personally are trying to navigate through that and trying to understand it, let alone, children that are 20 something years are junior. Like, I can't even imagine what it's going to be like for them if we don't step up to the plate as women and as concerned community leaders, and really have a solid sit down conversation of like, what are we going to do to ensure that we're raising holistically healthy individuals that are strong and have a sense of self-worth and understand what true values and morals are. Having ambitions is great. Having femininity and embracing your beauty is wonderful. However, we don't want that just to be the only thing that women feel. Young girls, I should say, women and young girls feel that is like all their worth is wrapped up into, and that's why they have to compete with other women to be better than, or get the better man, or the richer man, or the bigger purse type thing. And it's all cyclical, like I said. So I feel like I'm rambling, but I could go on and on and on. And the point is, I wrote a blog post about this, but I wanted to expound upon it a bit more because I didn't want it to turn into a big, huge dissertation, obviously. And for two, being a filmmaker, show, don't tell, although I'm telling more than I'm showing, but having, the visuals here to help. But yeah, so those are the two other main questions of like, about the youth and our young girls and where we're all headed in the future, because our children are the future. I think about young girls today that are, questioning themselves and their worth and their validity and their space in life by scrolling through social media. What's that doing to them? And how it's affecting their interpersonal relationships with other women in their lives. And again, like I said, who's going to be setting the standard in terms of being there on the ground with them as the actual source and reference that these young women can reach out to, when social media is really it's not responsible for it. At the same time, it plays a part, but it can't take all the blame. So where are the true matriarchs, and how are we cultivating those relationships and making that more readily accessible for young women to have a more just healthy, holistic standard of how to embrace true womanhood and what that really means? Connection, love, nurturing, just all the beautiful facets of what a fully loving relationship with other women brings to your life. We focus so much on like romantic relationships a lot of times with women, and we're taught as young girls to get married, and you're playing with your Barbie dolls, like my little girl is playing right now with her Barbie doll. But I feel like a lot of attention is not really placed on, like, for one, loving yourself for one, and then for two, connecting with your sisters and all of the other wonderful relationships that come from that outside of being involved with a man in a relationship. Those are things that we we'll be looking at to diving in more, because it's not really spoken about a lot. Again, it ties into the media. A lot of young girls and women flock to the media for guidance, advice, for help a lot of the times. And as wonderful as an outlet as the media can be, it can also be very detrimental. And so we want to bring more balance to that equation. You know, a lot of women, you know, they're turning to different forms of, like I said again, media, uh, be it stories or entertainment, try to kind of escape in a sense, because it's almost as if like things have just become so burdensome in a woman's life that sometimes you just don't even want to deal with it, which spirals out to other forms of, you know, alcoholism and drug abuse and hypersexuality, promiscuity, and just the whole other gamut of things that come about. Again, not placing blame on the entertainment. However, I'm understanding that there's a place for it. It's like, where does it stop and where does it end? And at what point do we step in as women and claim responsibility of like, well, you're not going to be able to mold our girls' minds to think that your worth is wrapped up in social media followers and sex appeal, etc. Young girls here, of course. This clip, learning in school, obviously it's a big part of it too. A lot of the learned behavior in school settings, you know, with the whole mean girls and bullying and, you know, things of that sort. A lot of women, or young girls I should say, in the formidable years are kind of like conditioned and that type of behavior is normalized. I know there's a big pushback now with the, you know, anti-bullying, and a lot of legislation has made really great strides. However, I feel like it's one of those things where it's like, we don't need to like pass a law and have legislation to solve everything. If it's something that intrinsically, like, we as women, as families and communities should be concerned about and concerned with, and have a deep invested interest in really getting to the root issue and the cause of it, and not just placing blame on, you know, social constructs in a sense. So again, it kind of ties into that, you know, with the whole mean girl bullying. A lot of that behavior essentially could be learned behavior at home, and so if we're not addressing the home, how are we going to be able to infiltrate the school system? Okay, mama, be careful. You know, girls, you know, we learn by connection and what's setting the standard and what's setting the example for us. I remember being a young girl taking dance for the very first time and learning so much about myself and my body and my gifts and my talents, and discovering, you know, being able to be around other creatives and other women and young girls my age, who are also just, I don't know, invested in their gifts and living life, and it was so positive and wonderful and communal and community. And so I feel like we really need to stress more community and have more access to that, and have more healthy spaces and safe spaces for women to have great access to community at a younger age and throughout life. I feel like after you get out of school, like, you know, pretty much like middle school, high school, um, you're kind of like forced into these environments, right? In school, in traditional school setting. I went to public school until I switched over to homeschooling. But um, you, it's like after, when you're not forced to be around someone, I'm using the word forced intentionally because, I mean, you're required to attend school. And I'm not gonna say anything's wrong with that, but I will say that when you're placed into these kind of artificial settings that don't really exist outside those walls, you kind of really have to learn like what socialization really is, or what effective harmonious communication really means, and what that really means to you, right? Because a lot of people don't typically carry on those same relationships outside of school. Usually you have your school friends, you have your personal friends, you maybe have your neighborhood friends, you may have like your family friends, but most of the times they don't mix. Usually, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But as you grow older, you realize, like, you know, you move on, you matriculate through life, through through college, even if you attend the workforce, you know, rather, even still. And it's like you start to have to understand and learn, like, wow, like, I don't have to be confined to a classroom now for X amount of hours per day interacting with these individuals. And so if I'm not required to be here, how do I cultivate and nurture and foster deeper relationships with people when I'm not placed in a situation where I have to be with them? So now it's like the inner work kind of comes into play. So I feel like a lot of that is, again, access to community and safe spaces for women to come together and to connect and to grow and get in communication and get into love and nurturing and giving and sharing, because that you lose that essentially after you graduate from school and stuff, because I know that I had a big thing about that too. I know a lot of women felt the same way as I was conducting research and interviewing. You know, a lot of women were like, yeah, I don't really, we know it's not uncommon for you not to really have the same friends anymore after you get out of school or you get to a certain age in life, and you know, things happen. Obviously we have different paths in life, but there's not really like a concerted effort for women to really come together on a consistent basis outside of things that have been formed from the I guess the micro communities who make it a priority. Like if you're not a part of that, you could potentially slip through the cracks and not have access to that, and it's so important. Women coming together and sharing a bond, it just ties back into the other slide, but that's really essentially where it's at. Like women really coming together and connecting and having that community and having that sense of belonging and sisterhood, and not feeling as if we're alone. And I feel like a lot of things are birthed from loneliness. You tend to harbor feelings that may or may not be true. I feel like it's difficult I mean, we as human beings are not meant to be alone. And I know, like, one of the first things, like after someone is assigned to like solitary confinement, for instance, they immediately have to complete a compulsory psychiatric evaluation or treatment course, because that affects us like in so many ways, and it can be traumatic. And so it's so important and imperative that us women come together and have these wonderful, flourishing, just thriving communities of women that we can come together and share and emote and cry. That's an emotion. Smile, laugh, share joy. Be that community around different times in life, you know, be it becoming a mother for the first time or the 10th, becoming a wife, deciding that you don't even want to have that, you just want to travel the world. Having support systems around you as a woman is so important, and I feel like it's not stressed enough. And I know for a fact that it has made a tremendous impact on my life to be able to have wonderful women focused communities, because women go through things that other women can relate to because they themselves have been there, or they have insight, or they have instinct and wisdom like no other. And so without that, I feel like it's really kind of the crux of why our communities are crumbling. Again, these are all my hypotheses. However, these are things that we want to explore throughout the film project. Again, here, you know, connecting to a social channel, of course, is one thing, and as great and as much as that has brought us and provided us, and just the wonderment of just being able to explore the world by the tap of your fingers, in a sense, it's also created a lot of displacement and feeling of being left out or loneliness, and not really feeling as if you have somebody who you can relate to. And so again, how I said before, like, it's about that balance and bringing that balance back and not placing so much weight on outside external resources, but really going deeper within. You know, one of the major goals is to ensure that we are uplifting women and that women are uplifting women, and that it being real and genuine. You know, we rise by, you know, reaching out and helping each other. I know there's the saying goes like a rising tide lifts all boats, and I feel like we as women have to become that tide. Like that's really what it is. Like we're not going to be able to rise up if all women are not reaching out, holding hand in hand, to rise and lift each other up in the spirit of harmony. You know, quieting out the noise of the outside world, and really going deep within with yourself, understanding like the nuance of like self-worth and validity of like the outside, how I said before, the outside world, understanding women, there's an internal work, an internal process there, and also learning how to convey and instill that in the next generation. So I want my daughter to learn to always go within, like to always have an understanding of like, you know, yourself and being true to yourself, because if you can't love yourself, there's no way that you can love another. It just it's just impossible. And actually, the more you love yourself, the easier it's for you to love another, because you can't help but be compelled to see yourself in others. Because there's just no way that when you filled yourself up with so much joy and love that it doesn't overflow. And it's gonna like be the natural byproduct of being able to have this movement really take off how it needs to be and how it should. And how I feel a lot of women are there's an outcry. It's like I feel like there's like this undercurrent of like an internal outcry that is just waiting to be released. It's like a teapot that's on the verge of like screaming. Like this has been boiling and boiling and boiling and boiling under for so long, and it's on the verge of screaming. And I feel like we need the outlets to be able to have and provide support and be conducive to healthy conversations, to be able to really position this movement. Like I said before, but just like the narrative of being healthy and in harmony, and like women really like going deep in to care and love themselves first, so we can start caring about our fellow sisters and our children. A lot of emphasis is placed on the outside world, like I said, beauty, um, you know, the perfection, chasing the perfection, feeling as if, you're not good enough, or you have to have the latest of whatever it is. Your physical attributes being the end all be all to you. And as much as, like I said, as wonderful as beauty is and femininity, and to embrace it, yes, it's so important for women to be able to stand firm and be confident in that. However, not feeling as if like that's all that you have to offer, because that just creates a lot of confusion in your mind in terms of your self-worth and how you can relate to others, and especially other women, which is really the point of it. And that's where a lot of the, really unhealthy, toxic relationships spiral. That's how they're birthed, and how you have the feeling of not wanting to be a value add to anyone else's life, especially another woman's, because you view her as competition. So, again, I know I feel like I reiterated the point, but I know that's a big, huge driving factor for myself personally, but a lot of the women that I've spoken to as well. Starting as young girls again, feeling as if what are we teaching them? What are we instilling in them? How do we value them? How do we teach them to value themselves? And at some point we have to stop and just stop saying like, we recognize and we see something going on, but who's actually going to do something about it? It's like we got to stop, like, and I mean stop, like everyone, like stop and like really take a full assessment and drive awareness around where are we in the state of womanhood. Because if we don't, where is that going to lead us? Where is the next generation going to be led to if we don't take a stand? As funny as memes like these are, if you think they're funny, making a good chuckle scrolling down, social media. But there's also something to be addressed in terms of women and their own interpersonal relationships as it pertains to the opposite sex, like I said before, with romantic relationships, and feeling as if like we have to vie for men's attention, and any other woman is viewed as a threat. And so that is one thing that is a big, huge concern for a lot of women, and myself as well. I've unfortunately, I have to admit it, I've fallen prey to that too, feeling as if like, I'm not good enough and I'm not pretty enough. And I've had significant others in the past, like girls' photos that are very attractive, and feeling as if like, well, I can't compete with that, so I must be not, worth much in his eyes, and taking that and internalizing that and causing me to feel yucky about myself, which spiraled out into other facets of just craziness. And so, a lot of it is just like embarrassed to even say that, but it's just the truth. And so I got to be truthful that I have also fallen victim to that mindset of being jealous and feeling as if I'm not good enough. But it all goes back to our young daughters and girls, our nieces and nephews. Well, nephews, boys are affected as well. But this project, we're focusing on young girls this time around. But that's really, really, really where it's at. Where is all this leading them? Their young, impressionable minds. Where is this leading them? There's been quite a few outspoken, public figures about various facets of competitiveness and, female women being, not say femininity or feminism, but I feel like it's broader than that as well too. There's aspects of that as well, but a lot of women have spoken out about, women being pitted against each other and spoken out about it, or just given their voice, their opinion about it. So I wanted to place a couple here. And it's just, it affects so many women on so many levels and so many different walks of life. These are just so happen to be celebrities, but being able to speak to the women that I've been able to that I've had access to reach out to, that have been really gracious to allow me to place my camera in front of them, or place them on camera, I should say, to be in front of the camera and allow me to lend me their time and allow me the privilege to speak to them and interview them. It's been a blessing. And so, like I said before, it's bigger than me because it's affecting so many women in so many different ways in so many walks of life. And so that's how I know it's just, this project is so important. And it means so much to so many women because there's just so many women who have so many stories to share and to tell. And those are just a few, these are just a few here, but I mean, we're wanting to capture more, as many as we can, because it affects so many women on a deep level. And as I said before, just to kind of drive it home, is like, who are girls looking up to, who's guiding them, who's leading them, because they are the future. And so it's like kind of really understanding what answering those questions essentially is really where it's at. And again, these memes are funny, but when you think about it, it's like you do hear a lot of the talk and the chatter around, women empowerment and sisterhood, and I love you, and we want to work together. But then in reality, it's like a lot of stuff behind closed doors. It's just complete polar opposite. And so this is actually going to be addressing a lot of things that a lot of people don't really either don't talk about enough, or they kind of slightly brush over it and they don't really get to the root of it. And for obvious reasons, they have other things and priorities in life. They have brands to protect and personalities to I don't say personalities like that, like they're not being true to themselves, but they have public appearances to upkeep. And so we are aiming to dive deep and ask the hard questions and get to the healing, because essentially, what are we doing if we're just going to be surface? We're not going to get anywhere, really. We're not willing to go deep. Like, we can only do so much on the surface level. Like, at some point, we got to get to the root issue. And so if you would like to view the film trailer, you may do so on our production company's YouTube channel. It's Fourlyn Films. If you type it in the search bar, it's pretty easy. And it's spelled out here, Fourlyn Films. You can also connect with us on Instagram, and you can also find out some more information about how you can assist us and how we can all rally together to bring this into fruition and to get a healthy conversation started, which is really the goal of it. We're not going to obviously solve this issue in a 90-minute film, obviously, but the goal is to be that light to spark and provide space for healthy, conducive conversation that can attribute to the overall healing and wellness of women and young girls all over the world. And so those are the goals of the project, and how much of an impact we are looking to make, and how important this work really is. And so if you would like to learn more and potentially partner with us to help bring this into fruition, we look forward to being able to speak with you. So I'll leave the contact information listed below here as well. and we hope to be able to really make some traction this time around, because like I said, it's been a labor of love for the past 5 years, and I took a break and I kind of had to, go navigate, personal relationships, which kind of happened. Again, being, part of this project since, starting it from the inception of it. But I'm here, and so I'm ready to really take this to the next level now and get, just get the community involved, and getting everyone who really believes in this and wants to be a part of it the ability to do so, because it's bigger than me. Understand the importance of this as well. And so I don't want to keep rambling on at the end here. So yeah, I look forward to being able to speak with you soon, and thank you so much for your time.